And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. I just had to wear this little shirt today. This was like an old T-shirt long shirt from 3 years ago. Little reminder
Nice.
for Juan Soto, wear the sign.
There we go. There we go. Let's get Juan Soto in the building and make sure he doesn't leave, right?
Yeah, exactly. This shirt says it all right here, Miss Juan Soto. Right here, if you're looking at this show, this shirt says it all.
That's right. That's right, man. And we got so much to get into today. This is one of the crazier weeks. And, believe it or not, with everything that's happened over the last couple of months, I mean, Yankees go into the World Series, the Mets go on an incredible run, make the playoffs in the first place, all the crap with the Jets falling on their face, the Giants falling on their face, hockey and basketball season underway. So there is a lot to get into right now. But unfortunately, first and foremost, let's get into the debacle that we know as the 2024 New York Jets. Somehow, they managed to be a bigger debacle than the 2023 New York Jets and even the 2022 New York Jets. It just doesn't end, as the great Joe Beningo would say, oh, the pain. Believe me, I've been a Jet fan for over 30 years, so I know that pain quite well myself. But let's just start with the base of what's going on right now. So this whole week started off on Sunday afternoon at MetLife. Jets hosting the Indianapolis Colts with a game where if they won, they'd pull to 4-7 and tie themselves with the Colts. And even with a crappy record and as bad as this season has gone, the Jets would actually have a faint pulse in the AFC playoff hunt. Now, technically, they're still not eliminated yet, but with their eighth loss, they're pretty much, unless they run the table, they're not even going to finish 500. So the playoffs don't exactly look to be that much in play right now. But the Jets crap the bed as they have all year on Sunday in a disastrous 28-27 loss where Aaron Rodgers drove them down the field, protected the lead, kicked a field goal, which nobody agreed with except for Jeff Ulbrich. And the Jets had a 27-22 lead. They choke. The defense allows a touchdown and Anthony Richardson to drive right down the field for the loss. That's where we start. Believe it or not, there's a lot more to come on the New York Jets following this awful loss because we found out on Tuesday that the Jets have fired their GM, Joe Douglas. Now, before we get into all the other insanity, I did want to get your opinion on the Jets firing Joe Douglas, Dan, because even though it seemed to shock some people internally and surprise some Jet fans, maybe catch us off guard for the timing of it, it it didn't really surprise me that much. I mean, the Jets are 3-8. I think anybody that's a reasonable fan, at least, understands that as much as we don't want it to be, the season's over. The Jets aren't making the playoffs. So obviously Robert Saleh was going to go, and obviously Joe Douglas was going to go. Joe Douglas 30-64 as the Jets GM. One of the worst marks I've ever seen in any sport for any circumstance. How can a guy that, has a winning percentage under 30%, be the general manager for almost 100 games? It kind of boggles the mind to even think about. But Dan, what was your reaction when you heard that the Jets had fired the GM Joe Douglas?
I felt like this was inevitable. It was going to happen. I mean, the guy just let some really key defensive players go. Then there's that whole Hassan Reddick debacle that may have cost the Jets a couple of wins. It was just that then not signing a real head coach.
Yep.
The writing was on the wall, and it's just a disaster. And the thought that there's a question mark that Aaron Rodgers might return next year, and we ended up and the Jets got a waste of 2 years of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, believe
It's a
me, Dan, we're
disaster.
definitely we're definitely going to get into the Rodgers talk in just a second because I don't know how much you've heard about this nonsense that has come out over the last 24 hours since the Jets dismissed Joe Douglas. Which let's not forget, Joe Douglas was given a full 6 years. The Jets gave him a 6-year contract, and that 6-year contract is set to expire following the Jets season finale this year. So the Jets didn't really. I mean, they did fire him early, they dismissed him early, but it wasn't your typical firing where he still has years left on his deal. The Jets actually uh, pretty much run the whole course of the contract. But Dan, when you look at this, and I don't know how much you've seen of it, but let's just start here now. So the Jets fired Joe Douglas, right? Now, what you have to realize is that Joe Douglas can't really talk to the media too much. Of course, they're going to ask for his opinions, but or his statements, but he's not going to give any for a variety of reasons. But Joe Douglas's agent and the people in the organization that are still loyal to Joe Douglas and all these other people are going to come out of the woodwork to try and make Joe Douglas look as good as possible. And I don't know how much you can make him look that good, but Woody Johnson in this is taking a big, big hit because Woody Johnson in this piece that came out last night for The Athletic by former ESPN reporter Diana Rossini. And let's not forget, The Athletic, we live in 2024. We have brains in our head. We understand that the media is not infallible. And we understand that there is this thing called fake news going around. But I do have to say that The Athletic, as much as they annoy me on some of their takes and everything like that, when it comes to situations like this, they really have to vet sources and they really have to get confirmations from other people aside from just the primary source that they speak to for an article. So this is a culmination of multiple people speaking out on this topic. So while I do say that it's smart for anybody to take these type of articles with a grain of salt, I'm sure there's also a lot of truth in these articles, even if certain things are fabricated or made to look worse than they really are. So let's just get to the meat and potatoes of this ridiculous article. Which before we really get into any of this, Dan, I want to ask you: have you heard any of this stuff yet? Because we're going to get into it right now, and I just want to know if you've had a chance to see any of it yet.
I haven't gotten around to get around to the full of it, but I'm just reading stuff before the show, like catching up on everything and hearing about this whole firing that just happened. It's just mind-boggling. Like I gotta give kudos to every Jets fan that is still alive and kicking after all this news.
Oh yeah, and Dan, it only gets worse. I can't even believe I'm about to say this right now, but in the report they specify that Woody Johnson called a meeting with the general manager Joe Douglas and the coaching staff and the coordinators too. So it was head coach Robert Saleh, the OC, the DC, special teams coordinator, and the GM, all in Woody's office following the Denver loss, where the Jets lost 10-9. Which, by the way, in hindsight, doesn't look as bad, as Denver just was almost a kick away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs 16-14 last week. So let's not discount this Denver defense in the way they've played. But apparently, Woody Johnson, following that loss, wanted Aaron Rodgers benched after the loss to Denver in a tense meeting with his coaching staff and GM. Half of the meeting apparently weren't even sure if Woody Johnson was kidding. Some of the guys in the meeting thought it was a joke. And let me just put it to you, okay, right now, if you're looking at it once again in hindsight, you might be able to say to yourself, well, hey, maybe Woody wasn't that off base, which, by the way, that's ridiculous because you're not going to bench a Hall of Fame quarterback for Tyrod Taylor as your backup. That's just insane. And think about it in this context even more, Dan, right? Going into that Denver Broncos game, Aaron Rodgers just played the best game that he's still played to this day as a Jet. That Thursday night game against the New England Patriots. The Jets were 2-2. let's not, I'm sorry, they were 2-1 going into that game. So let's not also forget that Aaron Rodgers drove the Jets down the field and got them to within field goal range of a 35 or 40-yard field goal, whatever it was. And the shit kicker, what's his name? Greg Zerline, missed the field goal. So the Jets were one missed field goal away from being a 3-1 team at that point. And Woody Johnson wanted Aaron Rodgers benched. This is just to start this off. This just goes to show what a joke this whole team is, and led by this garbage owner, Woody Johnson. Because you're seriously sitting here telling your coaching staff to bench one of the best quarterbacks of all time after they were one kick away from being 3-1 at that point? What the hell kind of message does that send?
No, all I can tell you is, in the words of character Lemon Grab, unacceptable! Unacceptable!
Yeah, it is unacceptable, because could you imagine that, Dan? Like, could you imagine the owner? First off, let me get to this. Could you imagine, any of the Maras going over to, after a tough start, going over to, whoever the coach was at the time, whatever the deal, and saying, hey, I think we should bench Eli. Why is the owner getting involved and telling the coaching staff to bench anyone? Which, by the way, I didn't include this in our cry-ons in the bottom, but a lot of Jet fans found it curious that safety Tony Adams was benched this past week against the Indianapolis Colts. Well, it turns out that he was benched at the behest of Woody Johnson. Why is Woody Johnson telling the coaching staff to bench people? Woody Johnson doesn't know shit about football. When Woody Johnson's people are going in, and the Johnson & Johnson people are making the vaccine or whatever shit that they do, does Woody Johnson go in there to their scientists and say, no, I don't want any of that in there. You put more of this in there. What? Woody Johnson doesn't know shit about vaccines, and Woody Johnson knows even less about football. So what is he getting involved with? I don't get it, Dan. Why is he doing this to my team?
I don't know why, but he is sounding like a real joke. And plus, it's even been proven that even one of the crappier things about one of his products, a little shampoo that supposedly is false advertisement, no more tears, more like lots of tears.
Boom,
especially if you're a Jets fan like yourself. Lots of tears.
You got that. Oh boy, you got that right, Dan. There is nothing but tears in the forecast for the Jets fans, no matter how much tears-free shampoo that Johnson & Johnson company wants to make. And Dan, you often make the joke about the Johnson & Johnson and this and that. Well, nobody looks like a bigger dick right now than Woody Johnson, and his name spells it out perfectly, as you've said many times in the past, right?
Yep, exactly. The name Woody Johnson, running a line of products under the name Johnson & Johnson.
Fuck yeah. Like, just give me a break, man. It just never ends for Jet fans. And then another thing in this article that came out was that Woody Johnson apparently, how I have knocked, and rightfully so, for a lot of because I didn't know this, but and let's also, once again, this is part of the article that I take with a grain of salt, because this seems like it kind of came out of Joe Douglas's representative's mouth. So I don't know how much to buy into this, but just the fact that it's even said annoys me. So Woody Johnson apparently was so angry last year at the way the season went that he would not commit to give any new money to players on the 2023 team during the season, which included star defensive end Bryce Huff, who left and signed with the Eagles in the offseason. So apparently Joe Douglas wanted to extend Bryce Huff in 2023 and just wasn't given the option. Woody didn't want to give it to him. That alone annoys me, because that just shows what an asshole Woody Johnson is. You've got more money than God. What are you so worried about giving money to these guys that earn it? Bryce Huff earned that money, and he should be a Jet still to this day. Then, to make matters even worse, the guy that they traded for with Philadelphia to replace him, Hassan Reddick, who is a star D end. He's been garbage ever since he came in because he didn't have a training camp and he came in out of shape. And that's all because of Woody, too. Woody, apparently, after the Jets acquired him, wanted to try to basically make this guy play on his original $14 million deal, which the representatives for Hassan Reddick warned Joe Douglas and the Jets front office that said, hey, guys, listen, before this trade is done, we just want to let you know that Hassan is not going to play and he will hold out unless you guys are prepared to pay him and give him a new contract. And the Jets just ignored that, gave up a third-round pick, and still did it anyway. And then Woody, to make matters worse, wouldn't give him that extension. Dan, this is just poor management, headstrong, stupid decision-making where, Woody Johnson's getting involved in stuff that he has no right to get involved in.
Yeah, he is just a big joke, and I swear you got it. I can only hope that you guys get a new owner soon.
I'd love to say that's going to happen, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. Woody, it's possible he's going to be leaving the country again, or at the very least, maybe even joining the Trump administration in some capacity, which could take him away from the Jets. And hey, maybe that's going to be the best thing possible for this team. But, no matter what happens in 2025 right now, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, and that's another thing too, I just feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. Has Aaron Rodgers been the 2020 MVP version of Aaron Rodgers? No. But to be honest, if you expected a 41-year-old quarterback coming off an ACL tear to be the MVP version of himself from 5 years ago, you're an idiot. And, you're just an idiot. Like, what were you expecting? Nobody thought he was going to be that. He was supposed to be a competent quarterback with an above-average run game and a top-of-the-line defense. And the Jets have thrown the run game out the window for some reason this year. It's like they constantly forget how good Breece Hall is, and the defense regressed from 3rd to 21st. So it's been just an absolute shit show in every way imaginable. And my question to you now, Dan, is there any chance Aaron Rodgers is back with this team in 2025? There are a lot of ramifications that go into Rodgers coming back. Now, if Rodgers was playing at a, really good level and everything, then you'd really have no worries about it. But my worry is that you're gonna bring in somebody that's gonna want to clean house. And even though I personally believe that Aaron Rodgers gives the Jets the best chance to win in 2025, at this point right now, I don't think any Jets people want to hear that. And I'm just sick of waiting. I don't want to sit here and be in the middle of another freaking rebuild when the Jets already have plenty of pieces on this team that you don't need to rebuild. When the Jets did the rebuild in 2020, they didn't have Sauce Gardner. They didn't have Breece Hall. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. They didn't have, all these big pieces, Jermaine Johnson and, things along those lines, DJ Reed. The Jets have those pieces now. And just to throw the towel in because it just blows my mind, Dan. So just to ask the question, what do you think? If you had to guess right now, is Aaron Rodgers back with the Jets in 2025?
I'm probably going to be let down for a lot of Jet fans to say this, but I think there's a real possibility Aaron Rodgers is just going to retire. At this age, he just has a lot of money. He doesn't need to come back, and he doesn't know how better of a situation it could be next year. He might just retire, and it might be one of the biggest disappointments in Jets history. Not entirely on him, but just the disappointment that he didn't deliver the Jets to the promised land.
The Jets couldn't figure it out around him.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the Jets, regardless of whether he decides to come back or not, really need to draft a quarterback in the next draft.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Whether he's back next year or not, the Jets have to draft a quarterback with their first pick next year. But the thing is, Dan, the thing that drives me crazy is that if you took this, everybody can knock Aaron Rodgers' play this year as much as they want, and it's ridiculous the turn that Jet fans have done on Aaron Rodgers this year. I will never turn on Aaron Rodgers. I am, what they in wrestling they used to say, I'm a Paul Heyman guy. Well, I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, and I'm never going to turn on this guy. This guy didn't have to come here and chose to come here and put everything on the line, and this organization has done nothing to back him up. And all I've heard is, oh, the Jets acquiesced to everything Aaron Rodgers wanted. Let me ask you this, Dan. Is January before or after May?
It is before May.
Yes, because that's when in January the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett, and the Jets didn't trade for Aaron Rodgers until May. So all the geniuses out there that continuously say, oh, Aaron Rodgers brought in his guy, Nathaniel Hackett. He didn't. Jets brass brought in Nathaniel Hackett to make this destination more attractive to their quarterback. And, all people want to talk about Devontae Adams. Yeah, it's such a crazy thought to bring in, the former wide receiver that's going to the Hall of Fame for a Hall of Fame quarterback. And then Alan Lazard, who, by the way, looked pretty damn good this year before he got hurt, Jet fans. And then the other guy is Randall Cobb, who was a sixth-string receiver last year and isn't even on the team this year. So let me ask you, Dan, would it be worth to bring those three guys in to have a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Yeah, it would have been that. It would be.
Yeah. So, look, it didn't work out, but to sit here and act like the Jets completely tailored their entire organization to Aaron Rodgers is just insane. Maybe you could say the offense was tailored to him because it makes sense to tailor the offense to that quarterback, the West Coast model. And I agree, if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, it'll have to be like a more updated version of it. But just the turn that Jet fans have done on Aaron Rodgers has just completely killed me. And the price, in my opinion, is going to be the Brett Favre treatment, where every Jet fan was so mad at Brett Favre after 2008. They wanted no part of him. Cut him. Get rid of this guy. We don't need Brett Favre here. Well, guess what? What did Brett Favre do the following year? He went to Minnesota and led the Vikings on an insane season where he went 12-4, took them to the NFC Championship game, and had one of the best years of his career. And guess what? The 2009 Jets went to the AFC Championship game with Mark Sanchez. If they were smart enough, like Rex Ryan wanted, to keep Brett Favre here, they would have, in my opinion, I think the Jets win the Super Bowl in 2009 if Brett Favre is on that team. People forget how good that 2009 Jet team was. And if they had a legit quarterback, they probably win the Super Bowl because, what was it going to be? Indianapolis? The Jets would have played Indy in the AFC Championship game, and that would have been the biggest thing standing in their way. So it just drives me crazy because guess what, Dan? The thing that scares me most is Aaron Rodgers coming back next year and being the MVP Aaron Rodgers and shoving it up the ass of every Jet fan that wanted him out here. And I'll tell you right now, if Jet fans force this guy out of town, just like they did to Brett Favre, I'm going to sit here, and as much it'll kill me as a Jet fan, it'll make me happy that Rodgers had the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to happen. At the same time, I kind of that kind of surprised me when I hear about that. That you feel strongly about that about Brett Favre, because everything that came to my consensus about that from a lot of Jet fans and everything is that Brett Favre wasn't like really in his comfort zone in New York.
He wasn't, but you could have made it more comfortable for him. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like after 2008, the Jets were just like, that's it. Rip the Band-Aid off. We're done. We can't do it anymore. But if the Jets had gone to Brett Favre and said, which they didn't. We know they didn't. They just cut him and let him do whatever he wants. If the Jets had gone to Brett and been like, hey, Brett, look, we know you got hurt last year. We know it didn't end good, but we were 8-3. It started off really good. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to bring in Rex. We're going to bring you back healthy, and we're going to run it back one more time and see what happens. Okay, maybe Brett Favre shoots it down, but guess what? Brett Favre was under contract. Brett Favre didn't have a choice whether he liked it or not. So, you know what I mean? And the Jets brought in a whole new offensive coordinator, a whole new staff anyway. So you could have brought in Brett Favre-friendly people instead of Schottenheimer and whoever they brought in to run the offense that year. And you could have tailored the offense to Brett Favre just like Minnesota did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. They could have easily done that. And for all you know, you might be talking sounding entirely different on this show. You might have been wearing a shirt that says 2009 Super Bowl champs.
Yeah. And Rex Ryan could be in the Jet Hall of Fame right now, and have his face up there in MetLife. And it just drives me crazy, man. It just drives me crazy that Jet fans are just so short-sighted. Brett Favre didn't work. Band-Aid, rip off, move on, rookie quarterback, and sitting on Aaron Rodgers. Oh, it didn't work 1 year. See you later, Aaron Rodgers. Let's move on. But who's going to be the quarterback? Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor stinks. It drives me crazy. I have to stop talking about it right now. I'm gonna go crazy. So the next game is the Jets are in the bye week now. The next game is going to be on December 1st, hosting the Seahawks. So once again, it'll be a face from the Jets past. In Geno Smith coming in here, probably spiking the ball in our face. But I did want to. Okay, so obviously we just spent a lot of time in the Jets because of the insanity that unfolded from this past week. But I do want to touch on the Giants for a second before we move on to some baseball talk, as the Giants had some news this week too. So last week we were talking about how it's surprising the Giants haven't really moved to bench Daniel Jones yet, because there is a provision in Jones's contract where if he gets hurt, the Giants are on the hook for $25 million next year for him. So it looks like the Giants finally started to understand that risk. And now what they're not calling it a benching, but they're calling it a shutdown of Daniel Jones for the rest of this year. And surprisingly, they actually snubbed backup quarterback Drew Lock, who didn't really seem too happy about it in the press conference. I saw him talking about it. But they actually opt to start third-string quarterback Tommy DeVito. And they also signed former Jet quarterback Tim Boyle, who started a game or two last year for the Jets. So, Dan, what do you think? We were talking about the ramifications of continuing to start Jones last week for the Giants, but now we know it's going to be Tommy DeVito. How do you feel how this whole thing unfolded?
Well, it's probably that's the right decision, because you want to be able to release Daniel Jones. If you want to do that, probably prepare for the potentially next quarterback if you've tanked enough. And it turned out, even when we weren't playing, we still fell down 5 spots on the draft board. And I was literally, someone sent me this meme, the picture of Carl up from Aquatine Hunger Force upset because, like me, Carl from Aquatine Hunger Force is a Giants fan. So, and it pretty much said my reaction when I'm looking up all the stats and everything after last week's NFL action. And at the same time, it may have been a good decision to go to Tommy DeVito, see what you got, assess it's pretty much, I feel like it's a combination of tanking the rest of the year and assessing what you got for next year.
Oh, it's definitely tanking, because if the Giants were looking to win, and compete, they would definitely be starting Drew Lock, because Drew Lock, is a bit. I mean, look, I don't have anything against Tommy DeVito, but Drew Lock is definitely a better quarterback in the NFL than Tommy DeVito. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a strategic move by the Giants. They say, hey, you know what? We don't want to be on the hook for Daniel Jones money. We like Drew Lock, but he's kind of too good for us right now. And I think let's just start Tommy DeVito, because fans like Tommy DeVito first off. So, Giant fans will kind of get a kick out of it in a lost season, at least for a little bit. And and Tim Boyle is really just kind of there to be the third string guy, because even though Daniel Jones was the starter, he's actually technically the number 4 quarterback on the depth chart right now, because the Giants said they don't want him doing anything. He's really not even practicing at this point right now, because the last thing the Giants need him to do is get hurt. So the Giants quarterback room right now, that for guys that could potentially play, is DeVito, Locke, and Boyle. So that'll be an interesting room the rest of the year for the Giants as they coming out of their bye week, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday at MetLife Stadium, 1 p.m. So it'll be interesting to see how Tommy DeVito looks against that Buccaneers team, because the Buccaneers have a really good offense. Obviously, Baker Mayfield is playing at a high level, and Mike Evans is a great receiver coming back off an injury right now, and they have a lot of weapons out there, but their defense isn't too good. So maybe the Giants are able to take advantage of it a little bit with Neighbors and Tracy and now DeVito.
Yeah, I feel like this game is going to just turn out who has the ball in the last drive. It feels like, because there's not going to really be much defense there, because you got a decent offense. I mean, you're playing against. I mean, Baker Mayfield looks like he's probably on track for comeback player of the year.
So it's close.
Yeah, so it's pretty. I feel like it's going to come down to who gets the last, who gets the who has the ball during that final drive of this game.
Man. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, so I agree with you on that. And with that, let's turn the page on the football. We'll start talking about a little baseball real quick here for a couple of minutes, as the free agent market really hasn't heated up too much yet, but there have been a couple of things. Obviously, we've seen a lot of awards come down and everything. One thing I did want to focus on was Manager of the Year award, which I believe Carlos Mendoza got snubbed. Now, look, me and you had talked about this in the past. I didn't think Mendoza was going to win. I thought Pat Murphy would win, because Pat Murphy won the division and Carlos Mendoza didn't. I think it's as simple as that. And Pat Murphy did. He won. But the thing that I didn't like is that they made the Padres manager, Schilt, get the number 2 spot. I'm sorry. The Padres were picked as a team that could be a contender this year coming into the year, and they didn't win the division either. So Carlos Mendoza should have finished above Schilt. Now, I know it doesn't really matter, because either way he doesn't win, but I don't like Mendoza finishing 3rd. He should have finished higher than Schilt.
Yeah, I think he should have either nearly won that award, or even probably won it. I would have had no problem if he won it. But it's like there's zero respect for a guy who just took a team that didn't look like they were going to make it, looked like there was a bunch of pitching that was going to, they were just tanking, didn't sign, and they were didn't even sign the piece that was going to get them over the top during the off season. Anyone that could get them over the top during the season. Looked like they were just tanking. And because they're like the game 6 of the NLCS, and what? I was like, it's a joke. Whoever these writers are a joke. They should be on the Shizer list, as far as I see it.
I'm with you, man. And you know what? Look, I don't have a problem with Pat Murphy winning. Pat Murphy, in all intents and purposes, because obviously we don't count the postseason. The seasonal awards end after game 162, so it doesn't count anything that happened in the playoffs. But I think it's fair to say Carlos Mendoza should have either been 1st or 2nd, definitely not 3rd. Him finishing 3rd is ridiculous. The Padres had a much better team on paper than the Mets, and not to mention, the Mets were buried. I mean, I think that's what people, like, especially these writers, aren't factoring in. The Mets were 18-29. They were 11 games under 500. They were dead in May. Met fans were as miserable as Jet fans are right now, and Giant fans. So like,
yeah, exactly. I was miserable.
That plays a role in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just look at us. Everybody would say about me like, "Oh, this team." Ugh. Like I was like walking out of a game like saying like, "What did I just see?" Like I was just scratching my head. And then June, and then everything looked like a disaster up until somehow Carlos Mendoza somehow Grimace just sparkled some magic on everyone, even the Mets manager Carlos Mendoza showing up, and it just turned a complete 180 of the season turned a complete 180.
Yeah, it really did. And I think Mendoza and his steady hand played a large role in that. And it's just a shame that he didn't at least even get the runner up in the manager of the year. He got screwed by Schilt. But on
And
another
and,
Met
and,
note,
and, and, and then I have to say another thing. I mean, this is not to knock anything about the Mets. I mean, I'm a Mets fan, but yesterday they were doing their canned food drive, and they had like a little they were the team store was open, right? I wanted to buy this Christmas bobblehead that they were selling at the team store. It was $140,
holy shit.
and then it made me disappointed. I didn't. I ended up not buying it because it was like so much, and I had to. There were other things things in the house that I needed to help out with and stuff. So it's like kind of felt bad, but I like it was like a really. I thought it was going to be like the centerpiece of the little Christmas decoration on the kitchen table. Turned out like I thought during the off season. Maybe during the off season it'll be on sale when I saw this at the team store. It turned out it was a letdown because it was at the same price, pretty much the same price I saw it was during the regular season, during late in the season. Which even though it would have been at home, I just ended up buying this. I think I ended up buying this little Christmas magnet. You probably saw the picture when I posted a picture of two little items I bought in the Mets team store. I think I bought this Christmas pin and I bought like this Christmas magnet, and I showed a picture for the team store, that bobblehead that I would have bought if it didn't cost that much, 140.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. And the Mets actually gave us a little bit of an early Christmas gift, although it's obviously not the one we're waiting for. But the Mets did have a replacement for Harrison Bader, who it is kind of disappointing that it looks like the Mets are going to be letting Bader walk via free agency, but they did strike early to make their replacement as the Mets traded relief pitcher Eric Orzi to the Tampa Bay Rays for outfielder Jose Siri. Now, Jose Siri is a guy that came up with the Houston Astros, had a little stint with the Cincinnati Reds, played the last couple of years with the Tampa Bay Rays, and he has a reputation as a guy that's got a little bit of pop. As you can see, his numbers here, he got to 130 games last year with Tampa Bay, slugged 18 home runs, only drove in 47 runs, stole 14 bases, and the thing that really stands out to him is his defense. And he led the league with 16 defensive runs saved in center field. So, as you could tell, David Stearns really, really prioritizes defense in center field. Now, there's two things. Now, apparently, uh, you know, series bat, the guy only hit a buck 87 last year. So that's the thing that's going to hurt too. He's going to have to get those contact numbers up. But as opposed to Harrison Bader, apparently he's a better defender than Bader, which is crazy because Harrison Bader is a very good defender himself. And the thing that really stepped off to me is that Jose Siri is much faster than Harrison Bader. And let's not forget, Bader is not that slow either. He was used primarily down the stretch as a pinch runner in games he wasn't starting. So, the Mets recognized that he was pretty quick for their team standards, and Jose Siri is even quicker. So, his bat might be a little bit more of a question mark, but the fact of adding Siri, who's going to improve the defense and improve the speed on this team, that's a pretty decent move. What did you think about that trade, Dan?
I think it might be more of a complementary piece in the outfield, to like an outfield that's going to have Nimmo and probably Juan Soto on this team, probably. If
Well,
all
you
goes
hope
well.
Soto, but then you have Nimmo in left, and let's just say, fingers crossed, the Mets sign Soto and he's in right. But what they're saying is that center field is going to be held down by Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri. But let's not forget, Tyrone Taylor just had a big surgery. He had some kind of midsection surgery that is supposedly going to keep him out for a little bit, including maybe even past opening day. So I would think that Siri's probably going to get a bulk of the playing time early on this year.
Yeah, I just feel like that's what we're gonna get. So I feel like this move might be not questioned so much, especially if we sign Soto. If we don't sign Soto, then it's gonna be a head scratching move.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right about that, because if you can look at him as a little bit more of a complementary piece, like you said, and a cheaper option, that, let's not forget, with this trade, Jose Siri is under team control for, I think, until 2028. So it's a pretty good move under that, where he's going to be here for the long haul. And you mentioned Juan Soto, so let's check in on that real quick. As the Mets had a meeting with Juan Soto late last week, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, and it reportedly went very well. The Mets really gave him, as they described it, a really detailed orientation of their entire beliefs and their entire organization and everything. So David Stearns and uh, Steve Cohen went to Northern California and met with him last week to make their pitch. And then the Yankees had their pitch earlier this week. I believe that went down on Monday. So both New York teams have had the opportunity to take a crack at Soto so far. And one reporter asked Hal Steinbrenner what his feelings were. Like, was he feeling positive about the ability to retain Soto and things along those lines? And Steinbrenner was pretty honest, where he said, "I really have no idea. I just know we're going to be in the mix." And hey, it's not the old bravado that Steinbrenner Yankee fans are used to, but that's definitely, hey, that's what you want to hear. At least your team's going to be in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. And I just have a feeling that the rest of the free agency market, even the whole question mark of if Alonso's going to be re-signed or not, is not going to be decided until after this whole Juan Soto thing is over. And I just have a scare. I don't think it's going to drag on. Hopefully Juan Soto's taken a page from everyone else that's been with Scott Boras. That you don't want to waste a team's time not being able to be ready in time for the sign at a point where you're not going to be ready for the start of the season. So I feel like he's going to get this signing pretty soon. Maybe December, maybe during the winter meetings, maybe shortly after the winter meetings. I just feel by January, somewhere at least by January, somewhere by the middle of January, we will know where Juan Soto signs. Hopefully it'll be with us, and hopefully he doesn't turn it into a 1 hour special like that LeBron James debacle in the NBA.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. There's no way
Yeah,
Soto's
yeah,
doing that. But I'm with you though. I,
that is an hour that was an hour of disappointment that I wish I could get back, especially with the fact that he at the time he
oh,
didn't sign with the Knicks.
he did to the Knicks
That
twice, so screw LeBron. But when it comes down to it, everybody knows what a jackass he looked when he was doing that. So there's no way Juan Soto is going to do anything that stupid. But the thing is too, I agree with you. You said that you think Juan Soto is going to be off the board before January. I'll even take it a step further. I think, like you said, around the winter meetings. So I'm saying by the second week of December, Juan Soto will be off the board, because the free agent market is going to depend on Soto setting the market. So, I'm with you. I don't think any of the big names are going to sign until Soto's off the board. And
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah,
going to be the one, I'm saying, between December 5th and 12th, I'm thinking.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like Juan Soto is going to have an effect on where some of the other free agents sign. Because I feel like you remember, similar to how when Pedro Martinez signed with the Mets, how maybe it was like a trickle down effect of free agents that were seriously interested in signing with the Mets. I feel like Soto is going to have that effect on the
Yeah.
Mets. Similar to how Shohei Ohtani had that effect with the Dodgers last year, this could be something that has an effect on the team for during the rest of the off season this signing period. It's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna have a big effect, and I feel like by December you'll know. I have a feeling you'll know early enough that whatever team Juan Soto signs with, those fan bases or someone who knows someone in whatever fan base of that team that Juan Soto signs with will be able to go and order a Juan Soto jersey for that fan by that time.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Dan. And speaking of free agency too, the Mets now have three new free agents on the market. that have all rejected their qualifying offers, as Pete Alonso, Luis Severino, and Sean Manaea both, or I'm sorry, all three of them have rejected the Mets offer. It's the qualifying offer. So basically, now if all three of these guys or any of them sign with different teams, the Mets will receive draft pick compensation for that. Now, the only guy I thought that the Mets had a chance to retain on these offers was Severino, but yeah, even he turned it down too. Now, it doesn't mean that all three of these guys can't come back, but it just means that they're not going to do it on the qualifying offer. So I don't think that really surprised anybody, though, right, Dan?
Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
Yeah, yeah. So we know those guys are going to test the market, and hey, to be honest, they earned it. So best of luck to those guys. Would love to see um, any of them return. I'd be happy to see any of those guys back. But with that, Dan, let's turn the page one more time as we get to the final leg of the show here. I want to cover a little bit of basketball and hockey on our way out the door this week. Let's start off with the New York Knickerbockers, who are on a West Coast swing right now, along with our New York Rangers out there too. But so the Knicks right now, they won their third straight on Monday night. They beat the Nets twice in a row over the weekend and then finished it up with a big 134-106 win over the Pistons at Madison Square Garden. And you know what, Dan, if you look at a lot of, the advanced metrics numbers coming in from the NBA, meaning like shooting percentage, which, by the way, over the last few games, the Knicks lead the league in shooting percentage, and free throw percentage, offensive, what's the word they use there? Uh, you know, offensive and defensive efficiency ratings and stuff like that. The Knicks are really starting to climb towards the top of the league in a lot of those categories. So we're starting to see this talent that we have on the Knicks do what they haven't done on the Jets and round into a real team, which the Knicks really are starting to take the shape of that right now. Thibodeau is starting to get these guys to play a little bit more defensive minded, and the offense is coming from that right now too. So, Dan, when you start to see these things come out, look, hey, dropping 134 points in an NBA game is pretty damn impressive. So this offense is kicking on high cylinders right now. So, what's your confidence level with the New York Knicks right now?
I think they're finally starting to show up and finally become the team that we expected going into the year. They just look like they somehow reached like a second wind. I feel like maybe it took a little while for them to get going, and once they did, they were gonna be a really good team. Like I mean, they were gonna become the championship contender we expect. And bro, you know who else is happy about the Knicks getting all of a sudden getting on a hot streak? My mom.
That's right, man. And luckily for us Knick fans too, it's continuing tonight as they head out to Phoenix, and they're playing the really good team, the Phoenix Suns, who were off to a really really hot streak this year with like the way they came out of the gate. They had a lot of people talking about championship aspirations for that team. 10 p.m. Knicks Suns tonight. So big game out there out west, but the Knicks do catch a break because we all know that the upswing of the Phoenix Suns really kind of started when they picked up and added to their team Kevin Durant. And obviously that they were a good team before that. They became a great team after that. Now the Knicks don't have to worry about Durant or Bradley Beal tonight. Both of them are dealing with calf issues. So when the Knicks take on the Suns tonight, really two of their three best players are not going to be on the floor. So that's a big break for the Knicks, right?
Yeah, I feel like the Knicks got this win in the bag. They got this win in the bag. It would be a letdown if the Knicks don't win this one tonight. Also, I I have to say, I do not like that NBA in-season tournament thing because I just feel like it puts the players at more injury risk during the season. I just think I feel like it doesn't surprise me if some teams intentionally just tank the tournament.
Yeah, because some teams don't because most teams, to be fair, don't care about the tournament, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like what stupid thing? Like The NBA freaking makes a lot of money. They just got signed a huge contract with Amazon, which I don't really like that Amazon streaming deal because it's another thing I got to pay for to try to get every game, especially during the playoffs. I'm gonna have to pay like an arm and a leg for a couple months for playoffs, and then plus the Amazon signed that NASCAR deal, so 5 weeks, an entire quarter of the season, the NASCAR season is that, and then this the NBA potentially next year with playoff games. I'm gonna have to spend either that or spend money at a bar to potentially watch Knicks playoff games because of this.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it is dumb NBA deal. And first of all, it's gonna suck for anyone who actually just subscribes to Amazon to watch these games because Amazon's horrible with the lag, and probably worse than someone showed me once. I was visiting someone during one of those Thursday night football games on Amazon. The lag was horrible, and I heard from someone who works at the bar. Hold on.
Uh-oh. He's going off camera, ladies and gentlemen. He's going off. All right. Well, while Dan deals with whatever's going on there right now, let's also not forget that it's a bbig test going out west. So as much as we want to believe that just because a couple of these guys are going to be out for the Suns, hold on, Dan. Sorry, just because I muted you so we didn't hear anything. But so yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, but I was saying that lag from worker at a bar told me it's probably it's horrible, and from what I gather, it might be worse than the lag that was going on during that boxing match that everyone watched last weekend on
Netflix. Yeah. Now that got a lot of people worrying about the transition when Monday Night Raw goes over to Netflix in early January. So yeah, let's hope that they have the streaming issues figured out a little bit better than Paul and Tyson did. But yeah, Dan. So real interesting matchup tonight. But like I was saying, real quick, let's also as confident as we can be for our New York Knicks tonight. Going out west is always weird, man. So even though I do feel confident, and Durant and Beal not being in tonight is definitely a good thing for the Knicks. I don't know if I can consider it like a slam dunk win, because the Suns are a good team. They still have Booker. They still have a lot of talent, and it just going out west always worries me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those days of setting the DVR to watch the next day. If it was playoffs, I'd be staying up, but regular season, I'm setting the DVR to watch the next day after I get out of work. But I also have to say, hopefully, and I know a few New Yorkers that are in the Arizona area. Hopefully, they went out there and are showing up for this game.
Absolutely, man. New York fans always travel well, and just like they do for the Knicks, New York fans travel well for the Rangers as well. As last night, the Rangers were in Vancouver for the Canucks. As good old Howie Rose would say, Mount Vancouver saw Sam Rosen one last time. It was nice to see him get recognized in Vancouver. That was very classy of them to do. That organization, as the height of Sam Rosen's career came in '94 when the Rangers won the Cup against that team. And yeah, man, a big win, 4-3 victory in Vancouver. Big game-winning goal late in the third from Chris Kreider. And once again, just like we're saying with the Knicks, this Rangers team is starting to click now.
Yep, and you know who else is excited that the Rangers are starting to click right now? My mom.
Yeah, man. Well, you know what? I'm sure your mom and every other Ranger fan isn't too thrilled about right now. I don't know if you've noticed this, but this is something that's really been getting under my skin lately about the Rangers, and it's about the King of Kaching, as I take that from the hockey maven, Stan Fischler. I got to give him a shout out there. I've always been a big Stan Fischler fan, and he seems to be very perturbed by Igor Shesterkin not accepting the Rangers' mega offer to him prior to the season that would have made him the highest paid goaltender in the history of the NHL. He's still looking for more money than that, apparently. And as Stan Fischler calls him, the King of Kaching did get the win last night, but he also has this odd streak going for him where, have you noticed this, Dan? It seems like every time Igor is out there now, he gives up a goal in the first minute of the game. It drives me crazy every single time the guy's out there. I just don't get it. Even I saw that the Rangers posted a thing for him last night. Uh, you know, going to the game. Oh, Shesty's in net tonight. How many saves is he going to have? My response was, I don't know, but I know he'll be 0 for 1 in the first minute. It was true. I couldn't, even while I was watching it, I had made that comment hours before the game, and it came to fruition right before my eyes. I as good of a goaltender as Igor is, what's going on in the first minute of games?
I don't know. Someone needs to find a way to get him to not have the yips about this the first game. Like, remember in Major League 2 when that player they had to find a way for that catcher to not have a problem of not being able to throw to second base. Maybe something similar needs to happen with Igor. Maybe they need to have him read something. I don't know. Maybe do something like read articles from a Playboy magazine or something, just to get him to get.
Hey, whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I'm talking about, right? That scene in the movie.
Oh yeah, of course, because they were referencing Mackie Sasser with the Mets and everything. So, as much as I always liked that movie, that part always kind of got under my skin because I knew it was a shot at the Mets. Mackie Sasser, the only catcher in the history of baseball that can't throw to second base.
Yep. But yeah, hopefully they figure. Hopefully they figure out something, or maybe there's some mojo. Maybe I need to make sure to on the day of a Ranger game, maybe the sports grimace, executive grimace, who by the way is sitting in the living room, so I can't get him right now because he's sitting in the living room during the Knicks game. But the executive grimace commands me to go to a McDonald's and attempt to get a shake. And
Right.
if the next time I go to McDonald's for a shake, that shake machine is working, then the grimace has fulfilled that executive grimace has fulfilled the prophecy. Igor will not give up a first minute of the game goal.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so, man. You're right about that. Maybe you get that shake tomorrow because the Rangers play tomorrow night at Calgary at 9 p.m. So maybe get that shake sometime in the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the odds will be better in my favor if I get that shake in the afternoon. I feel like that's what I might need to try. And then if that happens, I will have to go to the executive grimace, but who will be sitting in the living room. All hail the grimace! All hail the grimace!
And that's how you executive produce.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Even though executive grimace is just mostly just making it smile at me, but most of the time he seems to bring a good mojo for our show. You got to give him that.
Of course. And shout out to the great Steve C, who I was quoting there from the old O&A days. Rest in peace.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, and with that, Dan, big game tonight for the Knicks, big game tomorrow for the Rangers. So we got a lot to get into in the next episode of Best Seat in the House podcast. But we'll catch up with you guys in about a week. Before we get out of here, Dan, do you have anything like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I gotta plug my Twitter account you see on the screen there, Bobo103 NYC. Instagram, it's Bobo718DK, same username on Threads. Also, it's one word, Daniel Curlin on YouTube. And of course, as you already know by now, and if you don't, subscribe to our Patreon, which is only $5. The almost the same amount as a round trip on the subway. It's a pretty good deal, and you'll get early access to most of my YouTube videos when I upload videos on YouTube, are 2 weeks early access exclusive to Best Seat in the House podcast Patreon users. So you get that is a real epic perk for you guys. You get that. That's not bad of a deal. It's not bad of a deal. In addition to all the other perks you get, and plus supporting the show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Dan. So for that Don't forget to check Dan out and all the spots he just said. Also, BSith_podcast on X. You can check us out on Instagram at Best Seats in the House Podcast. So, I want to thank everybody once again for hanging out with me and Dan on another episode of Best Seat in the House. We'll be back with you on Patreon over the weekend, but we'll be back, as always, every Thursday on YouTube. So, I want to thank everybody once again. For my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, and I will catch you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend.